Well, hey friend, thanks so much for tuning in wherever you are in the world. I happen to be at the local arboretum. There's a little creek, a brook. You might be able to hear the bubbles in the background. Lots of birds overhead. You'll hear them chirping. And occasionally people walking right through the picture. Such is life. And I am the firm believer that some of the great lessons of life presents to us in everyday things. In fact, I'm pretty strongly convinced that the little things are the biggest things. For instance, I was thinking about something that rarely crosses my mind, and that is just the act of walking. You know, from the time we're little toddlers and we learn how to walk until we get to the age where we can't walk again, we don't really give it much thought. Well, that is unless you're a Fitbit person, and then you're counting every single step, right? It's a part of life. But I wonder if you've thought about the reality that walking really is a controlled series or a series of controlled falls, right? The only way you progress when you're walking is you actually have to lift one foot and start to fall forward ever so slightly. Let the momentum carry you, gravity pull you ahead, and as you fall forward, you put your foot down ahead and you catch your balance, right? So there's actually imbalance required to make progress. It's a cycle. Imbalance, balance, imbalance, balance. That's how we walk. And I hear lots of talk and I read lots of blogs about how important balance is in our life. And I'm certainly not one to say balance is not important, but I think I would like to point out today is that balance by itself can actually be static, even stagnant, and that imbalance is actually required for progress sometimes, not always. But just in the act of walking, just in that metaphor, imbalance is required to regain balance so that we can progress. You know, I think of the world-class gymnasts on the balance beam. They don't stand in one place, right, and show how balanced they are. They actually intentionally flip and spin and jump and twirl, which puts them out of that static place. It actually looks like they're having fun. I know it's a lot of work. And then they come back down and balance on the beam. So you might say the balance beam is a metaphor for life as well. At first, it can be rather scary, right? A little daunting. Don't want to fall off, don't want to get hurt. A lot of people won't even get on the balance beam, and those that do, oftentimes they kind of tremble because they haven't mastered that sense of being able to regain balance on the imbalance. Life inevitably will throw us off balance. Oftentimes, when we didn't want to, it was unintentional, right? It isn't what we asked for, but I would say it's important and perhaps very helpful to reframe the imbalances of life when we get a little knocked off of our foundation as an invitation to recalibrate, right? Rather than falling flat or cursing God or whatever else as we feel like when we get knocked off of our course, realize that it's in the imbalance that it's a call to action, right? It's a chance to realize, and sometimes a heightened sense of awareness, that we got to do something if we're going to regain equilibrium. And so we make whatever adjustments, and sometimes they're like sharp and decisive in the moment. I don't know about you, but I can trip just walking upstairs. I don't know if it's my toes or my shoes or just I don't lift my feet high enough. And boy, that gets my attention in a second. I am making an immediate adjustment to keep my head from hitting the steps, right? Put my stuff down, put my arms out, or put my foot to regain that balance. Is it scary? Yeah. Is it fun? No. Do I do it well all the time? Nope. I got plenty of bumps and bruises and scrapes and sores to say that, you know, I didn't really do that very well. But that too, even when we fall, is an opportunity to learn. So we can ask ourselves, not why did that happen to me, but what can I learn? How can I grow? How can I do better the next time I get knocked off of my balance? And even as I think about the way our world, our universe is structured, if you look closely, you can see, like even at the atomic level, it's not static, right? The little particles are zooming and floating and orbiting and vibrating around the nucleus, and science says in some cases even through the nucleus, which I'm not even going to pretend to understand that. And then at the cosmic level, you think of the planets orbiting around the sun, always in motion, spinning on their axis, going out into netherlands, the nether regions, only to be pulled back in. And so this motion of orbits and vibrations, oscillations, you think of a metronome, it's going back and forth through the center. Sometimes it goes really fast, right? Sometimes it slows way down. I think that's an invitation, or perhaps a reminder, that life inevitably is in motion. I would say all of that is part of the grand scheme, the grand plan, that life does kick us off balance. Sometimes we just trip, right? Just make a bad choice. But again, it's not a death sentence. It doesn't mean that we're broken for good. We might fall down, scrape our knee, but when we learned how to walk, that's what we did, right? We hang on to something as long as we could, and then we try to do it on our own, and we weeble and wobble and fall down. And I can remember when my kids were learning how to walk, first they would grab onto my fingers. They'd reach up like a motorcycle handlebars. I was standing right behind them, and death grip on my fingers. I could feel the blood going out of them, but and I hold on to them so that they could get that sense of balance, right? And then get out of balance, which is that moving forward. And of course they would trip, they would fall. But what did I do? Did I say, well, apparently you're never going to be able to walk, so let's just stop trying. You didn't get it right, I guess you're done. No, not at all. As a dad, as a loving father, I'd reach down and let them grab my fingers again, and I'd lift them back up. If I needed to kiss their boo-boo or hug them, wipe away their tears, or kiss them on the knee, or whatever I could, just to encourage them. Hey, you got this, you can do this, right? And at first, of course, they were in very safe environments, and eventually they would loosen their grip on my fingers and start to figure out how to do this on their own. And did I say, no, you've got to hang on to my fingers all the time? I'm sure glad I didn't, because now they're 16 and 14, and one, I'm not tall enough to do that, and two, that really would be awkward, right? And I think there's such a beautiful metaphor to that, about life, about its imbalances, about learning to walk and how to progress, that series, that cycle, that oscillation of being balanced, being stable, and then being imbalanced. And that's actually how progress works. And we learn and we grow and we make decisions, and sometimes they're great. And so we do that again and again, and we make progress. And sometimes the decision's not so great. So we can learn from that. Don't do that anymore. I love the framework I learned in college. But we're doing anything, when we're learning anything, even from day to day, it's great to use what I call the keep, stop, start framework, right? Just take a moment to reflect, evaluate, and say, okay, based on what I just did, what I went through by myself or with a team, what should I keep doing? That's really working, right? Do that again. What should I stop doing? That was counterproductive. That's put me in the wrong direction. That hurt, right? And what should I start doing? There's infinite possibilities, limitless possibilities. So we don't just have to keep doing it the same way. Same is true with walking. Walking becomes jogging. Jogging becomes skipping and hopping and running. And then when you really get good at that, perfecting and understanding and the mechanics of that balance and imbalance and how your body works with gravity instead of against gravity, well, then you can become a world-class gymnast on the balance beam or a long-distance runner. And we see these world-class athletes that have taken this simple concept, whether consciously or not, of how to harness the energy of imbalance to make progress, right? We see people, what looks like they're defying gravity. No, they've just learned what to stop doing, what to keep doing, and what to start doing. And that's the joy of life. Learning something new, trying something new. And if it fails, it's not really a fail, it's an opportunity to learn. So even reframing our failure, not as a win-lose proposition, but a win-learn proposition. Because if you win or you learn, either way you win. So I just want to remind me, as I'm looking in the camera, and remind any of you who have tuned in, again, thank you so much for being here, that imbalance isn't something to be afraid of. It's not something to deny. And even though we do seek balance in many ways, the imbalance of life actually propels us forward. Life is not static, right? Balance oftentimes to me is that a scale of justice where there's the exact same amount on both sides, and then there's no movement. It's just static, it's still. Life isn't like that, right? Things are constantly in motion. Things are constantly changing. And so we feel imbalanced, probably more than we feel balanced. But it's that feeling, right? That's a signal. It's a call to action. When we're out of balance, what do we need to do in order to bring balance again and repeat the cycle of imbalance to balance to imbalance to balance, etc. That's the way life is built. That's the way life is made. And I think that's for our benefit. I'm sure it is. It's for our benefit, because if nothing ever changed, we would never grow, nor would we ever learn, nor would we ever become a master of our own gifts, talents, and abilities. So my encouragement to you, my invitation to you is not to just seek balance, but to also, in that same mentality, to embrace the imbalance of life as you're learning to walk. And walking can lead to hopping, skipping, running, having lots of fun, learning how to play without banging into the furniture, right? Or hanging on for dear life to your parent, your coach, your teacher, or even to God's fingers. Now, I'm not saying you want to get too far away from God, but the thing is you can't, because he's always there. But I think even God, when you learn to do what you do with a great skill, great expertise, and you use that to serve yourself, your family, and humanity, like a good parent, God applauds. He doesn't say, nope, you gotta put a tighter grip on me. He's got his grip on us, right? So we can run and fly. Perhaps that's even possible, right? You never know until you try.